In the quiet pre-dawn hours, before the neighborhood stirred, I found myself alone with the cold reality of my situation. There, in my modest driveway, a rusted relic of a once glorious era sat under the relentless scrutiny of an unforgiving homeowners association. Every day, without fail, the HOA would unleash a barrage of fines and stern warnings, each one an attempt to crush my spirit and force me into submission. Instead of shouting back or allowing anger to drive my actions, I chose a path of quiet endurance. I meticulously accepted each notice that was pinned to my door, each one a stark reminder of a system that prized appearances over history and heart. My silence, though it might have been mistaken for resignation, was in truth a deliberate stance, a refusal to be cowed by a bureaucracy that cared little for legacy. As I worked under the waning light of early morning, the sound of my wrench striking metal was a metronome to my resolve. Every clang and scrape was punctuated by the hum of disapproving voices from neighbors and the furtive glances of passers-by, all quick to judge what they did not understand. Their criticisms, their petty fines, all seemed designed to erode the beauty of what lay beneath the surface. Yet, amid that onslaught of external pressure, I discovered an inner strength, an unwavering commitment to protect something far more valuable than a mere piece of machinery. I realized that enduring hardship with dignity was itself an act of rebellion, a lesson that true worth is not measured by conformity, but by the courage to stand by one's convictions. With each fine added to the mounting pile, I absorbed the weight of their judgment like a silent challenge. I embraced the long hours of solitary work and the quiet moments when the world's clamor faded into the background, leaving only the steady pulse of my determination. I became both the observer and the guardian of a forgotten legacy, confident that my perseverance would eventually reveal the truth that lay hidden in the rust. The lesson was clear. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any protest. In that silence, I was gathering every piece of evidence, every quiet insight, so that when the time came, I would have everything I needed to show that real value lies not in what meets the eye, but in the enduring spirit of resilience that no fine or harsh word could ever diminish. Beneath the layers of corroded metal and peeling paint, the battered Mustang in my driveway was far more than an eyesore. It was a hidden treasure of American innovation. To the casual onlooker, it might have appeared as nothing more than a discarded relic, a broken-down hunk of steel with a past best left forgotten. But I knew that this was Ford's very first Mustang prototype, a tangible piece of history that carried the weight of dreams, ambition, and groundbreaking ingenuity. Every chip of rust, every faded smudge on the metal, told a story of a time when automotive design was bold and unrestrained, when engineers poured heart and soul into crafting something revolutionary. I had spent countless hours tracing the delicate contours of its original design, marveling at the authentic Ford logo stamped proudly on the engine block, a mark of quality and innovation that modern imitators could never replicate. Each detail, from the meticulously measured wheelbase to the unique serial numbers hidden in plain sight, was a testament to a bygone era when every car was built with passion rather than mass production. As I traced my fingers over the worn surfaces, I could almost hear the echo of industry pioneers, feel the fervor of creative minds who dared to imagine a future defined by horsepower and style. This wasn't just a car. It was a living relic, a bridge between the glory days of American manufacturing and the relentless march of progress. My discovery of its true identity filled me with a sense of awe and responsibility, a calling to preserve and honor a piece of history that had been unjustly dismissed by those who valued uniformity over heritage. The Mustang's faded exterior was not a sign of decay, but rather a badge of honor, a visual chronicle of trials and triumphs. In every rust spot and every dent, there was a lesson in resilience and a reminder that beauty often lies beneath the surface. By protecting this treasure, I was safeguarding more than just metal mechanics. I was defending the legacy of an era that revolutionized the automotive world and, by extension, American culture itself. It was a lesson to anyone who might judge based solely on appearances. True value is not always apparent at first glance, and often the most remarkable stories are hidden within the roughest exteriors. Living a dual life is never an easy path, and for me, it meant balancing the everyday persona of a humble car enthusiast with a secret that could upend everything. I was the CEO of Ford Motor Company. In the unassuming confines of my suburban home, where neighbors assumed I was simply another lover of classic automobiles, I carried the weight of immense responsibility and a legacy that spanned decades. Each day, I blended into the fabric of community that prized modesty and tradition, carefully concealing the high-stakes boardroom battles and corporate strategies that define my public identity. Behind the quiet smile and the grease-stained overalls was a man who once navigated the cutthroat corridors of power and innovation, a man who, for reasons known only to himself, had chosen the solace of anonymity in pursuit of restoring a forgotten masterpiece. This dichotomy was both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, it allowed me the freedom to pursue my passion for restoration without the suffocating expectations of corporate life. On the other hand, it meant that every interaction, every glance of curiosity from a neighbor, carried with it the silent tension of a secret waiting to be unveiled. The challenge was immense. How could I remain true to my duty as a guardian of a historic relic while upholding the legacy of an industry giant? In the quiet moments of solitude, when the world around me faded into a soft hum, I reflected on the ironies of fate. Here I was, a man who had once steered one of the world's most influential companies, now fighting an unseen battle against petty bureaucrats and narrow-minded critics. The dichotomy was stark. A seasoned executive reduced to the role of a reclusive craftsman, quietly mending a rusted symbol of innovation. Yet, within this duality lay the seeds of true wisdom. I realized that my journey was not just about restoring a car, but about reconnecting with the raw, unfiltered passion that had driven me to succeed in the first place. It was a reminder that beneath the veneer of corporate success, there exists a core of creativity and resilience that can inspire and transform communities. Balancing these two worlds required a steady resolve and an unwavering belief in the power of authenticity. In my interactions with neighbors who admire my work without knowing my true background, I found solace and validation. Their genuine curiosity and respect for the art of restoration fueled my determination. I learned that sometimes the greatest power lies in the ability to live authentically in both worlds, embracing the best of each without losing sight of what truly matters. In our meticulously maintained community, where manicured lawns and flawless facades were the order of the day, the Homeowners Association ruled with an iron fist. At the helm of this rigid order was the formidable president, a woman whose presence was as unyielding as the strict rules she enforced. Every time she arrived, her designer heels clicking authoritatively against the pavement, her tablet poised like a weapon, she carried an air of absolute control and unrelenting judgment. To the untrained eye, her actions might have seemed a necessary measure to preserve the pristine image of our neighborhood. But to those who looked deeper, it was clear that her methods were nothing short of authoritarian. She had an uncanny ability to pinpoint even the slightest deviation from her perfect vision of community standards, and she did so with meticulousness that bordered on obsession. With every step she took, every click of her phone as she documented supposed violations, the atmosphere turned tense and oppressive. The rust on my cherished Mustang, for instance, was not seen as a mark of history, but as a glaring blemish, a dangerous eyesore that threatened the immaculate reputation of our cul-de-sac. Her constant patrols, her impromptu inspections, and her relentless pursuit of every minor infraction left a trail of anxiety in her wake. Neighbors who once shared friendly greetings now hurried indoors at the mere sight of her approaching figure. Her actions were not limited to my property alone. She had a long history of targeting anyone who dared to deviate from her stringent aesthetic vision, forcing some residents to tear down beloved gardens, to repaint their homes at exorbitant costs, or even to remove cherished personal mementos that did not conform to her ideals. Her power was absolute, bolstered by detailed records and an unwavering belief that she was the guardian of our community's worth. Yet, beneath this iron exterior, there was a bitter irony, a person who used her authority not to uplift her neighbors, but to assert dominance and instill fear. The lessons she sought to impart were not those of unity or community spirit, but submission to an unyielding set of rules that left no room for individuality or historical significance. In her eyes, a rusted car was nothing more than a symbol of decay, an affront to the meticulously curated image of our neighborhood. Her approach was cold, methodical, and utterly dismissive of the personal stories and historical treasures hidden behind every imperfection. Each fine she issued, each notice she posted, was a declaration of war against anything that did not fit neatly into her narrow definition of perfection. And yet, As much as she tried to impose her will, her actions only served to ignite a spark of rebellion in those of us who believed that true value was measured not in flawless surfaces, but in the rich, often messy, layers of history and passion. Her iron fist, intended control, instead became the catalyst for an awakening, a reminder that true beauty and significance often lie in the imperfections that tell a story of struggle, resilience, and ultimately triumph. In the midst of the daily onslaught of fines and unwarranted criticism, I made a deliberate choice to document every single act of harassment with unwavering precision. Armed with my camera, notepad, and a steadfast resolve, I turned what many would consider mundane record-keeping into an act of quiet defiance. Every time the HOA posted a notice or snapped a photo of my unsightly car, I was there, capturing the moment in vivid detail. I chronicled the fine print of every violation, the timestamps of every photo, and even the subtle expressions on the faces of those who passed judgment. It was not merely about preserving evidence. It was about constructing an unassailable narrative that would, in time, reveal the truth behind the superficial assessments of my property. I spent countless evenings poring over documents, cross-referencing dates, and meticulously organizing the data into a comprehensive archive that would someday serve as the ultimate counter to the HOA's relentless crusade. With each documented infraction, I felt a growing sense of empowerment, a realization that the truth, when laid bare in its raw, unfiltered form, held more weight than any arbitrary fine. The act of documentation became a ritual, a meditative process that transformed frustration into purpose. In every photograph, I captured not just an image of a rusted fender or a peeling coat of paint, but the deeper story of resilience and historical significance. The rust was not a defect. It was a fingerprint of time, a visible reminder of the decades of innovation that had gone into creating something extraordinary. As I compiled my records, I found solace in the knowledge that every piece of evidence was a building block in the larger mosaic of truth, a truth that would one day challenge the oppressive narratives of the HOA. I turned each violation notice into a stepping stone, each documented act of intimidation into a testament of perseverance. This painstaking process taught me that details matter, that every seemingly insignificant mark or minor infraction was part of a bigger picture, a picture of a man who refused to let history be erased by bureaucratic tyranny. My documentation was not just my own vindication. It was a message to the community, a call to look beyond the surface and recognize the intrinsic value hidden within imperfections. Every record I kept was a lesson in accountability and a reminder that truth, no matter how suppressed, will eventually shine through. Through the careful curation of evidence, I was building a case that would, in time, expose the injustice of the arbitrary rules and celebrate the enduring legacy of a forgotten era. And in that process, I learned that meticulous documentation is not just a tool for resistance. It is a powerful act of preservation, ensuring that the stories worth telling are never lost to the sands of time. Every time the HOA's notice was tacked to my door or a new fine was mailed in, I felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. Yet, in the midst of this relentless onslaught, I chose silence, a measured, deliberate silence that spoke louder than any protest. Rather than lashing out or engaging in a public spat, I retreated inward, turning each incident into an opportunity for quiet defiance. In the dead of night, when the world around me was hushed and the only sound was the distant hum of suburbia, I would sit with my tools and documents, reflecting on the injustice that was unfolding. My silence wasn't a sign of submission. It was a calculated act of resistance. I knew that every harsh word and every unwarranted fine was a testament to their misplaced priorities, a community more concerned with superficial appearances than with preserving genuine heritage. With every tick of the clock, I cataloged the violations, not with bitterness, but with a resolve that burned steadily within me. The metal of my cherished Mustang, though worn and corroded, became a symbol of endurance. Each creak of its frame echoed the steady heartbeat of a man determined to protect a legacy that transcended the petty rules of a narrow-minded council. I learned that true strength often lies in holding one's ground without raising one's voice, that sometimes the most powerful statement is made not by words, but by a resolute, unspoken defiance. In the solitude of my garage, amidst a clutter of restoration tools and aged blueprints, I nurtured a fire fueled by past glories and future promises. I was not simply enduring the barrage of fines and condescending glances. I was collecting the silent evidence of injustice. Every fine, every violation notice was a building block in my carefully curated archive, a future testament that one day the truth would outshine the shallow judgments of the moment. This quiet resistance, refined over long hours of meticulous work, became my personal rebellion, a reminder that dignity is preserved not by loud declarations, but by steadfast action, by choosing to work on what truly matters while the world around me tried to tear it down. Amidst the daily trials of battling the HOA's relentless crusade, there emerged a beacon of hope in the form of a curious young neighbor. Katie, with her bright eyes and eager questions, found herself captivated by the old Mustang and the quiet passion with which I restored it. Every afternoon, as I leaned over the rusted fender or carefully disassembled a stubborn engine component, Katie would appear at my doorway, her innocent voice cutting through the tension of a judgmental world. "How does this work?" she would ask, her tone filled with genuine wonder, a stark contrast to the cynical murmurs of disapproval from the rest of the neighborhood. In those moments, I became more than a man fighting an unjust system. I became a mentor, passing on the timeless lessons of mechanics and perseverance. I explained every bolt and every scratch as if revealing secrets of a hidden world, sharing stories of innovation and the blood, sweat, and dreams that had gone into building something extraordinary. Katie's enthusiasm was infectious, and her questions, filled with the promise of a future built on curiosity and hard work, reminded me of the true value of history. As I taught her how to identify original welds and appreciate the nuanced beauty of a piece of machinery marred by time, I realized that the real victory lay in nurturing a passion that transcended appearances. In a world where conformity was enforced with iron rule, Katie's wonder became a subtle act of defiance, a testament to the idea that the next generation deserved to know the real story behind what the world dismissed as mere rust. Our interactions were filled with laughter and shared moments of discovery, as I recounted tales of Ford's pioneering spirit and the legacy of an era when creativity reigned supreme. In every lesson, there was a deeper message, that true innovation is born out of passion and perseverance, and that even in the face of overwhelming opposition, the spark of curiosity can ignite change. Katie's bright future, painted in the hues of determination and hope, became my driving force, an ever-present reminder that by inspiring the young, we preserve not just a relic of the past, but the promise of a better tomorrow. The day the foreclosure notice arrived was as bleak as a storm-laden sky, its bold, angry red letters a stark declaration of the impending loss. The envelope, heavy with the weight of over $23,000 in accumulated fines, fell like a death knell, a final act in a drama orchestrated by those who valued aesthetics over history. As I unfolded the notice, my heart pounded with a mixture of fear and steely determination. The words 72 hours to remove the vehicle or face foreclosure jumped off the page like an ultimatum from an unyielding authority. In that moment, every fine, every demeaning comment, and every petty violation converged into a singular, overwhelming challenge. My home, a sanctuary where passion for restoration had long battled against conformity, was now at risk of being swept away by bureaucratic tyranny. I sat there, surrounded by the artifact of my labor, old receipts, annotated blueprints, and meticulously dated photographs, and allowed myself a brief moment to feel the gravity of the situation. But in that fleeting silence, a transformation occurred. The threat, as daunting as it appeared, became the catalyst for a renewed resolve. I realized that this was more than just a legal or financial battle. It was a fight for the preservation of history, a stand against an unjust system that sought to erase the value of what was truly priceless. With every ounce of determination, I set about organizing my defenses, rechecking every piece of evidence, and preparing for the confrontation that was inevitable. The looming deadline was not just a countdown to potential loss. It was a challenge to prove that true legacy cannot be measured by monetary fines or bureaucratic mandates. In every carefully logged detail, every photograph capturing the authentic patina of the Mustang's rust, lay the unspoken truth that history, with all its imperfections, was worth fighting for. The foreclosure notice, intended to break my spirit, instead ignited a fire of defiance and hope, a resolve that if they sought to tear down what they could not understand, I would stand firm, armed with truth and the enduring power of a well-documented legacy. This threat was a turning point, the moment when despair transformed into a call to action, a call that resonated not just within me, but within a community ready to awaken from its slumber of indifference. The tension in the air was palpable as the emergency HOA meeting was called, a gathering that was meant to serve as a final judgment on what they deemed an eyesore in our pristine community. I entered the room with a quiet determination, knowing that every eye in the room was fixed on me and, more importantly, on the rusted Mustang that had become the symbol of a deeper struggle. The meeting hall was filled with stern faces, a mix of loyal adherents to the strict guidelines and a few curious onlookers whose expressions betrayed hints of doubt. At the front of the room, the HOA president took her place, her presentation ready to condemn the car and, by extension, me. With a click of her remote, a series of images appeared on the projector, close-ups of peeling paint, jagged rust lines, and alleged defects. Her voice, sharp and unwavering, detailed every violation with clinical precision. Yet, as she spoke, I could see the seeds of discontent beginning to stir among the residents. I listened intently as she painted a picture of decay and decline, asserting that the car not only lowered property values, but also undermined the very standards we were meant to uphold. The moment was electric. Tension mingled with a growing sense of injustice. When my turn finally came, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the turbulent emotions within. I began to speak, not with anger, but with a measured passion that commanded attention. I detailed the historical significance of the Mustang, presenting evidence of its authenticity, original blueprints, authenticated photographs, and even personal notes from its creators. I spoke of a legacy forged in the fires of American innovation and resilience, a legacy that could not be erased by arbitrary fines or petty rules. My words resonated in the silent pauses that followed, each sentence a clarion call to look beyond the superficial and recognize the deeper value of heritage and craftsmanship. The atmosphere shifted as I laid bare the reality of the situation. A community held hostage by narrow-minded standards, a legacy suppressed by bureaucratic overreach. In that moment, the room transformed from a battleground of rigid rules to a forum of awakening. Neighbors who had once nodded in silent agreement now leaned forward, their expressions softening as they absorbed the truth behind every word. The confrontation was not just about defending a car. It was about challenging an unjust system, about reclaiming a piece of American history that deserved reverence rather than derision. This public showdown became a turning point, a testament to the power of courage, documentation, and an unyielding commitment to preserving what is truly valuable. In the midst of the escalating conflict, the time came when I could no longer keep the full truth hidden behind layers of silence and strategy. The true value of the rusted Mustang had always been more than skin deep, and now, with the weight of incontrovertible evidence in my hands, it was time to unveil its hidden significance. Standing before the assembled HOA board and the skeptical crowd of residents, I methodically laid out my case. I presented a series of meticulously gathered documents, yellow blueprints that detailed the original design, high-resolution photographs capturing the authentic patina of history, and even handwritten notes from the era when the Mustang was born. Each piece of evidence was a window into a time when innovation reigned supreme, and every car was a masterpiece of craftsmanship. I spoke of the original Ford logo embossed on the engine block, a mark not merely of a brand, but a legacy that had revolutionized the automotive world. My voice, imbued with quiet passion and unwavering conviction, recounted the tireless hours spent restoring this piece of history, the sacrifices made, and the dreams that had fueled every stroke of my work. I explained that what the community saw as a mere rusted heap was, in fact, the very first Mustang prototype, a one-of-a-kind marvel that represented the pioneering spirit of American industry. The evidence was undeniable, and as I spoke, the atmosphere in the room began to change. Doubt turned into awe. Skepticism gave way to a reluctant admiration for the undeniable truth that history, with all its imperfections, could be priceless. I reminded everyone present that true value is not measured solely by superficial appearances or market trends, but by the enduring impact of innovation and creativity. My revelation was not just an assertion of technical fact. It was a lesson in perspective, a reminder that beauty often lies in the details, even those marred by time. In that moment, the Mustang transformed from a symbol of defiance to a beacon of heritage, a tangible reminder of what it means to stand by one's convictions and fight for preservation of a legacy that is far greater than any one individual. The room, once steeped in rigid judgment, now hummed with a quiet realization that some treasures are meant to be cherished despite their scars, for those very marks would tell a story of resilience and hope. As the meeting drew to a close and the echoes of my revelations lingered in the air, I sensed a profound transformation beginning to take root within the community. The very residents who had once accepted the HOA's rigid dictates with quiet resignation were now engaging in hushed discussions and exchanged glances that spoke of newfound understanding. The turning point had come, not through loud declarations or aggressive confrontations, but through the steady, undeniable power of truth and history. In the days that followed, the impact of that public confrontation rippled through the neighborhood. Neighbors who had once frowned upon my work now began to see the Mustang in a different light, a symbol of American ingenuity, a living relic that carried the weight of dreams and the scars of time. People started approaching me with questions, not to chastise, but to learn. Conversations sparked about the importance of preserving historical artifacts, about the beauty of imperfection, and about the courage it takes to stand up against conformity. The community slowly shifted its gaze from a superficial obsession with pristine lawns and immaculate facades to a deeper appreciation of stories that lay hidden beneath rust and decay. I found myself invited to neighborhood gatherings, not as a troublemaker, but as a storyteller, a mentor sharing lessons on resilience, creativity, and the true meaning of legacy. The transformation was palpable. What began as a struggle against arbitrary fines and an iron-fisted HOA gradually evolved into a movement, a quiet revolution where every resident started to question the very standards that had once defined their community. In their newfound appreciation, they discovered that the true measure of value lies in passion, in history, and in the courage to look beyond appearances. The rust on the Mustang, once a symbol of neglect, became a badge of honor, a visible reminder of a time when art, innovation, and determination converged to create something extraordinary. This shift in public opinion was not just a personal victory. It was a collective awakening. It taught us that change begins with the willingness to question the status quo and to celebrate the beauty hidden in the imperfections of life. In that transformed community, every resident learned a vital lesson. That history, with all its flaws, carries within it the promise of renewal and the possibility of a future where true value is recognized and cherished. In the midst of mounting fines and the oppressive force of the HOA, I reached a point where passive endurance was no longer enough. It was time to challenge the very injustice that had taken root in our community. With every fine slapped on my door, I could see a pattern emerging, a relentless abuse of power where rules were enforced selectively and no one, not even a historic relic in a rusted car, was safe from arbitrary punishment. I began to meticulously document every instance of discrimination. The overzealous fines imposed on Mrs. Robinson for her award-winning rose garden, the inexplicable mandate forcing the Jackson family to repaint their home because their color was 2 degrees too bright, and even the absurdity of banning a simple, heartfelt display of patriotism by a family with a Marine son. I recorded every detail. Photographs, timestamps, handwritten notes, and even recorded snippets of confrontations, all with the unwavering belief that truth, when presented clearly, would expose the deep-seated corruption behind these rules. Each documented violation became a silent protest against a system that prioritized uniformity over the rich tapestry of our individual histories. I understood that challenging unfair power wasn't a matter of shouting down an authority figure in a moment of anger. It was about gathering undeniable evidence and presenting it with calm precision to reveal the true nature of their tyranny. With each piece of evidence, I felt a growing determination that this battle was bigger than just a rusted car or a single homeowner. It was about protecting the legacy of our community and standing up for what is just. Every late night spent poring over old records, every painstaking cross-check of dates and violations, was a step towards dismantling the unjust power structure that had long ruled our neighborhood. I realized that the key to overturning this oppressive regime was not in confrontation for the sake of conflict, but in a quiet, steadfast defiance built on the bedrock of facts and unwavering integrity. By challenging the arbitrary power wielded by the HOA, I wasn't just fighting for my right to restore a piece of history. I was demanding that every resident be treated with the dignity and respect they deserved, free from the whims of a tyrant who saw imperfections as threats rather than opportunities for genuine improvement. It was a lesson in accountability, a demonstration that power, when unchecked and abused, can only be subdued by the collective force of truth and courage. In that long, arduous battle against the unjust, I learned that challenging unfair power requires not only determination and evidence, but also an unyielding commitment to stand for what is right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. As the days turned into weeks, the relentless struggle against the HOA's oppressive measures began to reveal its unexpected side effect, a transformation stirring within the community itself. The once indifferent neighbors, long accustomed to the silent imposition of unreasonable fines and rigid aesthetic standards, started to awaken to the possibility of a different future. It wasn't an abrupt revolution. Rather, it was a gradual, almost imperceptible shift in the collective conscience. Conversations that had once been filled with resignation and polite avoidance slowly turned into murmurs of dissent and whispers of hope. I witnessed it first in the quiet nods of agreement during casual encounters in the mailroom, in the furtive glances exchanged by residents who had secretly suffered under the HOA's iron rule. The very act of standing up to an unjust system had ignited something profound, a spark that challenged the status quo. People began to see that the rules they once followed without question were not immutable laws of nature, but constructs that could be questioned and changed when confronted with irrefutable evidence and genuine passion. Neighbors who had once hidden behind closed doors started to gather in impromptu meetings, sharing stories of their own grievances, tales of personal loss, of dreams stifled by an overbearing authority. The rust on my Mustang, once mocked as a mere blemish, transformed into a symbol of resistance and potential, a tangible reminder that sometimes beauty lies in the imperfections and the stories etched by time. Community leaders, who had long maintained the status quo, were now forced to reckon with a burgeoning movement that demanded fairness and respect for heritage. In this newfound climate of solidarity, every act of documentation, every carefully preserved piece of evidence, became a rallying cry for change. It wasn't merely my fight anymore. It was a collective uprising against a system that had drained our community of its vibrancy and individuality. People began to imagine a future where rules served to protect, not suppress, where each person's story was valued over a sterile, uniform appearance. In neighborhood gatherings, around shared tables with cups of coffee and hushed voices, plans were quietly hatched to rebuild a community founded on mutual respect and historical appreciation. This transformation was a testament to the power of standing up for one's beliefs, a reminder that when individuals unite against injustice, even the most entrenched systems can begin to crumble. The change was subtle at first, a renewed willingness to question the rules, to seek dialogue rather than submission, but it grew into a resounding chorus of voices demanding that our community be defined by diversity, history, and genuine connection rather than by arbitrary standards of perfection. It was a catalyst that showed us all that true community change starts with the courage to look beyond the surface and to value the story behind every scar and every mark of wear. The culmination of this long and arduous struggle arrived not with a dramatic explosion of conflict, but with a quiet, undeniable moment of triumph that was built on countless hours of diligent record-keeping and unwavering determination. It was during a critical community meeting, a moment when the entire neighborhood was gathered, tension hanging in the air like a thick fog, that I finally unveiled the full weight of my meticulously gathered evidence. Before the eyes of the skeptical HOA board and the curious, hesitant residents, I presented a comprehensive archive, whether blueprints yellowed by time, high-resolution photographs capturing every authentic detail of the Mustang's worn exterior, handwritten notes that traced the vehicle's storied past, and video recordings of past infractions that expose the arbitrary nature of the fines. Each piece of evidence was a silent testament to the car's true historical significance and a powerful rebuttal to the narrative of decay the HOA had so fervently peddled. The room, which had once been filled with rigid, unyielding voices, began to shift as the undeniable truth unfolded before them. Faces that had once scowled in disapproval now softened, their expressions transforming into ones of wonder and realization. The evidence wasn't just a defense of my right to restore a piece of automotive history. It was a declaration that truth could conquer even the most oppressive of forces. With calm and measured conviction, I recounted the history behind every rusted line and every faded mark on the Mustang, revealing that what they had dismissed as mere decay was, in fact, the physical manifestation of a revolutionary era in American innovation. I spoke of the painstaking work that had gone into preserving each authentic detail, of the legacy enshrined in every bolt and panel, and of the unwavering belief that history must be cherished, not hidden away behind rules and fines. The turning point was palpable, a moment when the weight of evidence transformed skepticism into admiration, when the cold logic of facts overpowered the emotional rhetoric of fear and control. In that transformative instant, the oppressive fines, the selective enforcement, and the arbitrary decrees of the HOA were rendered powerless by the undeniable force of truth. The victory wasn't just personal. It was a triumph for every member of our community who had ever felt silenced by the tyranny of an unjust system. It proved that when one stands firm with evidence and integrity, even the most entrenched powers can be challenged and reformed. In the aftermath of that decisive moment, the atmosphere was electric with a sense of possibility, a renewed belief that justice could prevail if only we dared confront the truth. That victory, achieved through the relentless pursuit of evidence and the steadfast commitment to transparency, would forever serve as a beacon of hope and a reminder that the truth, no matter how buried, will always find its way to the light in the final chapters of this long, turbulent journey. As the echoes of conflict gradually gave way to a calm, reflective peace, a profound lesson emerged that would forever change the fabric of our community. The rusted Mustang, once dismissed as a mere eyesore, had become a living metaphor for the timeless truth that appearances can be deceiving. Over the course of this struggle, every dent, every trace of corrosion, and every worn-out line on the car had come to symbolize a deeper, far more significant narrative, a narrative of resilience, transformation, and the enduring value of history. In the quiet aftermath of our victory, as the community slowly rebuilt its sense of unity and pride, I found myself reflecting on the lessons learned from this extraordinary ordeal. The battle was not just about a car, nor was it solely about challenging the arbitrary dictates of an overbearing HOA. It was about recognizing that true worth lies beneath the surface, hidden in the imperfections that tell a story of struggle, hope, and triumph. The journey had taught us that beauty is not defined by flawless appearances or pristine facades, but by the character and history that lie beneath. Neighbors who had once been blinded by a narrow focus on outward perfection now began to see value in the unique stories etched into every crack and blemish. The rust on the Mustang was no longer a mark of decay. It had become a badge of honor, a symbol of the grit and determination required to stand against injustice. In its weathered exterior, we found a powerful reminder that every scar tells a story and every imperfection holds a lesson. It taught us to look beyond the surface, to appreciate the layers of meaning and history that give life its richness and depth. This enduring lesson resonated far beyond the boundaries of our community, sparking conversations about heritage, authenticity, and the importance of preserving what truly matters in a rapidly changing world. As the days passed, the legacy of that rusted car continued to inspire, serving as a constant reminder that the most valuable things in life are often hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered by those who have the courage to look deeper. In that spirit, our community emerged stronger, more united, and more aware of the true meaning of beauty, a beauty that lies not in superficial perfection, but in the raw, unfiltered reality of history, passion, and the unyielding human spirit. This, ultimately, was a lasting lesson we carried forward, that in life, as in art, true value is measured not by what meets the eye, but by the enduring stories etched into every imperfection, waiting to be honored and celebrated.